Hello everyone, my name is Julia de Cristoforo and I'm a freshman. This course was my very first exposure to economics, and in the first week we learned about incentives. I tried to simplify the concept by exemplifying it with the scenario of going shopping and finding a buy one get one deal. The deal will encourage consumers to buy since they believe that money will be worth more because they're getting a bigger quantity for the same amount of price. On the downside though, it limits the options for consumers. For problem set 2, the remote students group and I discussed the effects of coronavirus and the market for major food delivery in major Chinese cities. With the sudden outside shock that was the virus, the lockdown was enforced and new social distancing rules were implemented. This caused many restaurants to go out of business and others to have to adapt to include delivery services. Not being able to go to the restaurants physically, the demand for delivery services skyrocketed. Fear of shortage of supply made people order in larger quantities as well. The equilibrium change in quantity happened because the price of food delivery remained the same. It was always calculated based on the distance that needed to be traveled for the delivery to be complete. But the quantity of delivery demanded highly increased, shifting demand curve to the right. Restaurants began to adapt to delivery and expanded their facilities, which caused supply to increase, shifting the supply curve to the right as well. This resulted in equilibrium price staying the same, but equilibrium quantity to change. As for consumer and producer surplus, they both increased, which also increased the total surplus. So consumer surplus came from two different groups: those consumers who were already in the market before the pandemic, but now demanded a higher quantity of delivery. Their willingness to pay increased while the price of delivery stayed the same, causing consumer surplus. Also, new consumers who previously refused to order delivery, their willingness to pay increases above market price now, also contributing to consumer surplus. For supplier surplus, we follow the same logic. So suppliers who previously had delivery services now have an increase in demand but no change in cost, resulting in increased supplier surplus. And again, restaurants that previously did not have delivery services now have to adapt or they'll run out of business. So they come into the market and also increase supplier surplus. Finally, if I chose to become an economist, it would be to allay the economic mess in my country, Brazil, and create more efforts to protect the Amazon forest. So, if I ever were to win a Nobel Prize, it would be for being able to propose a plan to make efficiently allocate the country's resources in order to support the remote indigenous groups living in the forest. Because studies have shown that they are the ones that are more capable of combating deforestation. Keeping in mind that Brazil is a major exporter of soy and that it requires vast plantations, which is one of the reasons for the active deforestation, I believe that an international initiative could be planned in order to not damage the country's economy, but allay the big rely on soy exports for GDP growth. The question I received by Professor Lu Yao was, given your personal experience, how do you think hybrid education affects social welfare? And if we were to consider social welfare to be a system that offers assistance such as healthcare to families, I believe hybrid learning can have a negative impact on the long term. For a lot of families, having their children home means that they have to provide an extra meal, which is lunch, which the kids would usually receive in school. And this can be very burdensome depending on their level of income, putting more pressure on the need for social welfare. Now, through my experience though, I have seen that hybrid learning requires a lot of extra services both from the school and a lot of commitment from the students. Being okay with not interacting with teachers or classmates outside the classroom is tough for remote students, but having to adapt their teaching methods to reach both those present and those online is equally difficult for teachers. They also have to provide extra hours to meet with students remotely and allow for submissions such as mine right now to account for time zone conflicts. Both groups have to compromise some comfort so that they can work together for hybrid education to be a success. For my final remarks, I would like to give thanks to both Professor Lu Yao and Assistant Professor Peter for introducing me to this new world that is economics. I would also like to extend my gratitude to my peers, especially those remote with me, who pushed me to want to learn more. I wish everybody luck with their future endeavors, and thank you for listening to my presentation.